Did you miss it? Apple's long-awaited Vision Pro headset was finally unveiled yesterday. Apple said a lot.
Allows us the freedom to imagine an experience unlike anything we've created before.
The internet said even more, but what's really interesting is what Tim and Chums didn't say. So if you're looking for a fresh take, then here it is, because as we know, silence speaks volumes. In this video, we'll cover AI, cooling, field of view and resolution, the headphone port, maintenance, price, using it outside, Unreal Engine, VR, and the weight. As well as whether Apple's about to make a shocking pivot to consumer beverages. Oh yeah! So let's crack the crack on.
Let's do it!
The internet has been losing its collective mind about AI since the turn of the year, so it was telling that Apple seemingly went aggressively out of their way to avoid using the word throughout the entire 2-hour presentation.
I'm not gonna say it. Say it.
It was hidden in adjacent terms like machine learning, neural engine, or this.
Another core part of the keyboard is dictation, which gets a new transformer-based speech recognition model that leverages the neural engine to make dictation even more accurate.
And if you didn't know, and by now you probably should, ChatGPT is a generative pre-trained transformer. So Apple have added an LLM-like experience to the iPhone, but they never used the word AI. Apple seemingly so determined to stand alone, to not only think different, but to be different, no matter what.
Very original, Captain.
For the first time, we've designed a fully three-dimensional interface. One magically controlled with just your eyes, hands, and voice.
It's a Quest Pro. It's pretty smart. It features hand tracking, but you still interface with VR using these controllers. Not so with the Vision Pro. It's hands and eyes, but voice input is also very important.
And with Siri, you can quickly open or close apps, play media, and more.
And oh yes, they did mention Siri, Apple's AI assistant that you would have thought would play a huge role in an AR experience, and maybe it will. But this is the only mention of it in the entire presentation. Siri, as you know, is voice activated. So why so lightly referenced? You'll probably find that's because it's completely and utterly rubbish. Now subscribe, or the puppy gets it. Now let's think about cooling, shall we? Because make no mistake, you will be wearing an entire computer on your face. An M2 processor, an R1 processor, multiple screens, and a bunch of other hardware, which needs to be kept cool. Otherwise it's gonna get... And nobody wants that. We can see here that it has vents, but are there any fans inside? The highly efficient M2 chip is undoubtedly a big part of this. But as the owner of many Mac laptops over the years, I can tell you that them things run hot. When it's sitting on your plums, well, that's just not something that you want. And when it's on your face, that's definitely not something that you want. And what about that battery? Only a 2-hour runtime if you're rocking it pocket styly, but if you plug it in, and we still don't know how you even do that, or if Apple will be gracious enough to even supply you an adapter. Will that make it run hot too? And now we come to the biggest hot potato of them all, the field of view, the FOV. This statistic makes a huge difference to the immersiveness of a headset experience. Now, the Microsoft HoloLens famously came with an absurdly limited field of view of just 30 degrees that made it feel like you were viewing objects through a small screen in front of the eyes. For comparison, the Quest 2, one of these puppies, offers 104 degrees, while the monstrous Pimax Vision 8K boasts 200 degrees. Now, we spoke to Artur Sitrov from Somnium about the Vision Pro, and this was by far his biggest question. Their own headset, the VR1, offers 120 degrees, which he claims should be the bare minimum for a modern headset.
If you have a smaller field of view on the headset, that's a huge immersion breaker. Give me low resolution display, but give me higher field of view. That's what I go for if I would have to choose.
Now, Apple haven't released the FOV figure, and there is only really one reason why they wouldn't have done, and that is because it's rubbish. And it probably helps to get to the porky that they told us about the resolution. Now, the headline stat on the densely packed micro OLED displays was a whopping 23 million pixels combined, creating what they called the equivalent of a 4K TV for each eye.
Bullshit.
Now 4K is a notoriously fickle number because it can come in so many different flavors, particularly when it comes to cameras and aspect ratios. But 4K, ultra high definition UHD, is generally accepted to mean 3840 by 2160. 23 million pixels equates to 3400 by 3400 per eye. So it's sort of 4K, but not exactly. It's kind of more like 3.5K. Although that doesn't really matter so much as what the implications are for that pesky field of view, the FOV. Alberto Rubal summed it up perfectly.
Knew it was fake.
Now, if we do some additional maths here and we assume 40 pixels per degree in terms of pixel density, then we end up with a field of view of 80 degrees.
Those mother.
So however you spin it, this isn't headline grabbing, which is probably why they didn't bother to mention it, which is why everything you saw is a carefully pre-rendered CGI version of events and not what it actually looks like through the headset. So we can whiz through the next ones on my list. Firstly, there's the headphone port, which didn't get a mention because, yeah, you guessed it, there isn't one.
What?
And I guess one awkward cable hanging off the device was enough. So if you want more immersive audio, you're gonna have to fork out for AirPods. Now, this is a Quest Pro. It also features a full glass front, there it is. And guess what? This thing gets absolutely covered in fingerprints constantly. So the question is, will there be a cover for the Vision Pro like this fetching rubber one? Or will that be itself a ludicrously overpriced accessory made of unicorn leather?
Unicorns?
And how do you keep that headband clean? It's knitted. The Quest Pro's head support is rubber, which makes it easy to clean, but a knitted headband, while cool, is just gonna soak up so much of your body's secretions. And if such talk makes you queasy, then you clearly haven't spent much time in VR. You'd be shocked at how much of what was previously inside you ends up on your device. Now let's talk about price. There is no getting around the fact that the Vision Pro is a lot of money, $3,450 to be precise. But then it's all kind of relative, isn't it?
I don't know.
And what Apple didn't say is what their margins are going to be, for obvious reasons. We know that Meta is losing a ton of money on every headset it sells because it wants to get them into people's hands. It wants people using them. So is Apple prepared to make the same play and go for break even, or what are their margins? The fact is, nobody quite seems to know whether this is good value or overpriced. What is true though is that it's going to be a luxury purchase for the few brave early adopters. But if you come from Web3, then this tweet from Lee the Kid might give you pause for thought. Lee, as we can see here, is casually rocking what is known as a pudgy penguin. And if you wanted to pick up one of those pudgy penguins, these delightfully wholesome JPEGs, then that will set you back a casual 4.8147 ETH. And if you don't know what that means, it's $8,742 in what is commonly known as Gensler cheddar. And you tell me, what represents better value? Now, penguins, being the outside types of creatures they are, probably won't have any joy with the Vision Pro either, since all of these glossily rendered demos steadfastly refuse to allow any of the protagonists to venture beyond the confines of the expensive sets they've been imprisoned in. Which begs the question, can you use it outside? Now, when you first switch on the Quest Pro, it sends you a very polite message not to ever use the device outside, because it will fry the electronics. Yes, it will. Now, we have used it outside and it was fine, but the experience itself was totally rubbish. Now, we still don't know if the Vision Pro can be used outside because they didn't say that it couldn't, but the fact that they never showed anyone doing so is a little sus. Now listen, when you think about the rich possibilities of AR, it's never really about bringing more screens into your home or taking the screen on your computer and putting it there. It's about creating a secondary layer of context into the real world. It's Pokemon Go. Now, if this generation-defining AR device, the Vision Pro, cannot capture the experience of the most played AR game ever made, then what is it for exactly? So what else did Apple not talk about? Oh yes, Unreal Engine. If you're talking spatial computing, you're talking 3D game engines. And Unreal, as we know, is a monster. But the Tim Tims are at war. And there was no way Apple was ever getting into bed with Unreal, so that really left them with only one other option, no matter how good the Unreal tech is. So, Unity it is, and what a coup that is for Unity devs as well. Epic's Tim Sweeney responded in typical Tim fashion. Go Timmy. And do go check out our big film on the Epic founder for a deeper dive into what's cooking over there. Now, you know what Apple also didn't mention? Not once. And this is kind of amazing, but it just goes to show how important it was for Apple and the entire team to claim new ground. And that is VR. It simply isn't there. Not at all, not in the entire 2-hour presentation. Because the Vision Pro is not a VR device. It is not. A competitor to this, not at all. And maybe that's why the FOV doesn't matter so much. They do use the words immersive and experience. You can use the crown to dial in a dynamic background wrapper, which sure looks a lot like VR, but yet again, they never mention the actual word. So Apple. And as they so often seem to do, they worked really hard on crafting just the right message.
These are just some of the ways that Vision Pro blends digital content into the space around us.
Blending digital content into the world around us. Definitely not VR. Definitely not. Now, the final thing they didn't mention was the weight. They talked at great length about using lightweight materials, but they still had to offload that battery to your pocket to save weight. But did it even work? Well, listen, we can only take hands-on experience for this, so here's MKBHD on the weight of the device.
And this is a headset made of metal and glass. It's heavy. Now, it is also super well built, like there is no arguing that, but I do wonder about using it for longer than the half hour that I did. I wonder if it would be more fatiguing to my head.
So yeah, it kind of seems heavy. Now look, I have worn this thing, the Quest Pro, for over 9 hours non-stop while running. And you know what? It was actually fine. I don't see weight really being that big of a deal as long as the balance and the comfort is good. Hold on, not so fast. Did you not realize they never mentioned the word Metaverse either? You call yourself a professional. Supposed to be good at this. Bugger off. That's right, nobody mentioned the word Metaverse throughout the entire presentation. Tim Cook has previously rejected the concept of the Metaverse because, in his words, I'm really not sure the average person can tell you what the Metaverse is. And Apple's VP of Worldwide Marketing, Greg Joswiak, also said he would never use the word Metaverse, which could be seen as a poke at Meta, or just Apple being Apple and trying to claim the whole new category for themselves. There's also a bigger story here about the open versus closed Metaverse, the walled garden of Apple, or an open, interoperable ecosystem, which, believe it or not, Mark Zuckerberg wants to be part of. Oh,
We do have one more thing.
it was really quite heartwarming to see Fraz occupying pride of place in the decor at the presentation. You know what I say? Great products, they just have this way of finding each other. Now, does this mean that Apple is moving into carbonated beverages? No, of course not, you silly sausages. Now make sure you get stuck into our Discord channel for more lively discussion about this and all other things Metaverse related. You too could be a basehead. Spicy in there. Peace!